It's all well and good creating a set of values that represents who you are as a group of people. But how do you actually then use them to create the foundation of your culture and also to drive your strategic objectives? You see, when they're used well, values will be the absolute centre of your success, but too many biotech companies, and companies in general to be honest, set them up and forget about them. When that happens, all of the benefit of creating them is lost. So before we talk about how to use them properly, you must have a set of values. If you haven't yet created your values, head back to my video on finding what's unique for a guide on how to do that. The second step is then turning those values into tangible behaviours and competencies, and you can find a guide to doing that in the video Bringing Your Values to Life. Watch those 2 videos first and then come back here. So there are plenty of ways in which you can use your values to shape your company's culture, and the first and most obvious one is in your hiring. It's incredibly difficult to convince people to change their personal values once they're set without there being some kind of fundamental life crisis. So rather than attempting to do that, your task is really to bring in people who already align with your company's values. And if the things that are important to them are congruent with the things that are important to you, then you'll be off to a good start. To make sure you're doing this, the first question to ask is a simple one. What's important to you in how you operate at work and in life? When they answer, they might use different terminology, but if the essence of your values and theirs are the same, then it's a positive sign that you should dig deeper. Take those competencies that you developed from your values and design interview questions around them that help you to gather concrete evidence. To give you an example, against our competency of continuous learning and self-development here at Singular, one of the questions we'll often ask candidates is, what are you working on developing right now? How are you approaching it? And what have you learned so far? If one of your competencies was delivering results, you might go with something like, tell me about a time you've successfully delivered an objective or a target despite facing challenging circumstances. Now, once you've identified and hired people whose values align with yours, a lot of the work is done, but your next job is to strengthen those values through a specific development program. The best way I've found to do this is with a competency framework, which is essentially a document stating what each of your competencies looks like at different levels. Now, these levels normally should align with the roles in your organisation and help you to define what you expect to see from people in each of these competency areas as they develop their skills and progress their career. When you have that framework, you can develop a company-wide training curriculum that gives your team a common foundation, a common understanding, and common language around each competency, and helps them advance through the levels as they progress their career. Alongside functional and technical training that they might have, values-based training will help you and your team to exponentially improve at the things that are important to you. And it'll also reinforce your commitment to your values and their importance to your culture. All performance reviews and promotion interviews should include a values review too. Before going into these meetings, think about how well, or perhaps not, each individual in your team lives the values, and where their strengths and gaps are according to the level of their role, and where they should sit on your competency framework. Ask them to reflect on the same things as well, and to provide examples of how they've demonstrated each value. It's useful to identify where there are misalignments or blind spots, and particularly when you're considering someone from promotion, this kind of two-sided reflection can help you and them to judge whether they're ready for the step up. Now, if they're not quite ready yet, explain why and put a plan in place to develop the person in the necessary areas. Make a commitment to them to revisit the promotion discussion once they've hit specific criteria related to these areas. Please don't hold back their progress unnecessarily, because they will find another employer who's happy to give them the opportunity they want. Recognition and reward are also key elements of leveraging values. Don't just praise performance. Look for examples of your team making good, values-based decisions and behaving in ways that align with the culture you're trying to create, and then give them the recognition they deserve when you see those examples. And make sure that you reward people for demonstrating your values too. A pretty common approach is to have a regular values champion award. And we do this monthly at Singular, and there's a £100 Amazon voucher as the prize for the person who's most lived the values in that period. It's also crucial that you, as a leader, create mechanisms for measuring how well your values are lived across the company. A quarterly survey is a really good way to do this, with specific questions around each value. If you provide the opportunity for multiple choice answers, you'll start to gather quantitative data quarter to quarter on how your employees feel about the culture, which will then help you to decide where to focus your attention. At the same time, you can get qualitative responses too, so that you can gather more nuanced feedback, and then you can use this to drive a program of what we call continuous cultural improvement. When you use them in these ways, values become levers you can pull to shape the culture of your company, which then in turn drives performance in a more fundamental way than any strategic or tactical decisions you make. It's worth putting in the effort to use values effectively.